important part on this. Pin them together. And once the legs are assembled, technically, you'll be okay to walk into a fitting. What you don't want to do in a fitting is walk in with a bunch of pieces and somehow have to, I don't know, pin those two to your body. That's what you don't want in your life. But as long as you have your legs assembled and attached, technically you can walk into a fitting. We want to get a little further than that, but one could. For like a frame of reference. If you can imagine being a performer and somebody just walks in with like a bunch of pieces, but like...
So what you don't want us to do is just like jab them with pins,
I mean, that's
so then they
the
stick
dream.
there.
That's the dream. We're just gonna sew it onto your body right now. You can't take this off until the end of the show.
It's like
You have to
Good
just
luck
sleep,
showering, my
shower,
friend.
everything.
I always thought I would like sew myself to a pair of pants so I have to walk on stage like just
Oh, the life. Okay, any questions about like how we've gotten here so far? Outseam first, you'll see how they look like pants. Find the place that looks like the inseam, which is the place that's not a curve. Then you're just gonna do the exact same thing, which is put in a regular ass seam.
Are we anchoring it all?
Anchor everything. I don't think there's a single thing on this like list of steps that isn't gonna be a seam with an anchor. Now, one of the other things that's most likely to get altered a little bit is the outseam, because when we put it on the body, if you imagine it's like a little bit wide here from the outseam is usually where we're going to take that in, or creating a deeper dart, depending on how it's fitting the body. Take the pins out. Can somebody give me a time check from a phone rather than the clock that has
44?
Thank you. We should have just enough time to do this. Okay. So good news, we got legs. You kind of see this is the back. Go here, you can see how this lines up to become a crotch seam a little bit. Start to look like pants, right? Got two halves of a pant.
Hell yeah, pants.
Wait, what?
Hell yeah, pants.
We have pants, we have two pants, we make them pants. Okay, so this is a part that often it looks a little bit, it's one of those things that's gonna look a little bit simple when I do it, and then when you try to do it, you might cry, but like, hold fast, it's gonna be okay. That's just my experience. So we're gonna go from the butt. We're gonna go from where you put your darts. So that's the thing to look for, is your darts to orient yourself. Thank you, you're like up here, thank you. So we're now stitching the curve. The curve is where the pants join. So this is basically, it's called the girth, the big crotch line of the pants. So you're gonna go from the corner, and you see all the corners will have this little peak. That's where the suspenders will eventually join. That's like a stylistic little peaked area in the back. You're gonna go ahead and start joining that curve together. So we didn't do the dart on this because I was just demonstrating, but you should theoretically have like dart to dart, start hitting on that curve. You probably want to put a few more pins a little bit more closer together on this. Your fabric, it's not a straight line, but you kind of make it a straight line as you're pinning, and that way you're able to stitch it as a straight line too, so you kind of tug until it feels like a straight line and looks like a straight line. And then just put your pins a little bit closer together, would be my recommendation. It doesn't have to be super closer together, but if you notice a point where it's fighting you, that's the place to just start adding more pins so that it stays right where you put it. Then as we get like most of the way down, we're gonna go and we're gonna find our seams that we've already put in. We want to kind of finger press them open because we want them to join open. That's gonna be the easiest way for them to join. And it's going to be the easiest way for them to disassemble if we had to put in, for example, a dancer's gusset, which is something that just gives us extra space. It's like a little diamond that gives us extra space down here, depending on what the movement is and all that good stuff. So we want to press them open with our fingers and match them up together. Like so. Little sandwich of seams. Get one pin in there. And then close up the rest of it. So it's really easy with especially a lot of these smudgy fabrics. If we just keep going here, this line will end up a little bit off. So as you get towards the bottom, go right on that line and then close up the rest to make sure that it's staying in its lane. And then, so that's half the curve. We basically just did the curve that goes up right here, right? The front curve, we're only going to sew up a little bit. And the reason for that is it's one of the things that we are going to end up fitting on the body, because what we will be adding, don't worry about this today, but it will come, its time will come, is this little placket, because the period garment had basically the fly, right? It's the fly of the pants. So this will eventually end up being in here, and it will have probably snaps and then like pretend buttons that are pretending to be buttons somewhere in there. So this will have like a curved piece in there that allows us to do that. It's also one of the places where we will go in and pin. So all we want to do is sew up to about here. You can look at it and you can kind of see how it's a curve. Find like this is relatively straight, and there's kind of a point where it curves more, about to there. You don't have to be super specific, kind of eyeball it. It's going to be, that's what, 4 or 5 inches maybe, about to where the curves really is starting. And pin that in there. That's just for kind of like full coverage on the person. Not that they won't be wearing undergarments and leggings and whatever else they might need, but just to kind of like not have a full crotch hanging open, just the top area so that we can fit that on them. You know, the dream. And we're going to go ahead and put an anchor stitch in this too, to answer the question that Francesca didn't even ask yet. And then how we sew this curve is, again, you're kind of forcing your fabric as you go to behave like it's a straight line, even though we know it's not. So it's a natural curve, but as I tug it, it becomes a straight line on the sewing machine. You've pressed open your seams so that they stay open. They're not going to stay open unless you keep holding them down. So I'm kind of holding them from either side with my fingers until I get past that point. Because the foot is going to try to like pick them up and nudge them in the wrong direction. Once I get past there, see, this is a curve, but it doesn't look like a curve as I'm sewing it because the fabric's just falling into a straight line. Usually once you get it pinned, the stitching is not that bad, but getting it pinned the first time you try to pin a girth curve like that, I've just seen it cause some existential crises. Take out all your pins. And technically at this moment, if I needed to, I could walk into a fitting with this and it would not be the end of the world. Pull the pant. Right? It's pant leg. And then we can look at this. This is someone with, I think, a 30 or 32 waist. I can't remember. I'd have to check. But we're going to look at this and we're going to check on the body. We're going to check, does it fit here right? Does the curve up here look right? Does it fit right at the waist? All of that good stuff. Does the dart need to be digged in? So the reason that we're kind of doing the outline, the skeleton of the pant, without the pockets, without all the extra stuff, is because we're going to put it on the body and a lot of that would change. So there's no reason to do it twice. We do the basic pant, fit it, and then add all of the extra bananas. Yeah? Questions so far to this point? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seams basically. Between now and Wednesday is what you're shooting for. Yep. Good choice. Okay, you can go ahead and turn that off.